Sometimes life throws you a curve so hard, it knocks the wind clean out of you. That night, in the dead of winter, I didn't just find a kid in the snow. I found the kind of trouble you don't come back from the same. I didn't think I'd make it back that night. The wind was screaming like something out of a nightmare, and the snow was falling so thick it was like the whole world had vanished behind a white curtain. I just finished a brutal double shift down at the truck stop diner, and I was beat. Hands stiff from gripping the wheel, breath fogging up the windshield quicker than the heater could clear it. My old beater of a car shook like it was about to fall apart every time the wind hit it. I was praying out loud it'd hold together, just long enough to get me home. That's when I saw him. At first, I figured it was a trick of the snow, just a shadow in the flurry. But as I leaned forward and squinted through the frost, my gut started to twist. There was a boy out there. Couldn't have been more than 8. Wandering through the storm in a flimsy little jacket, backpack slung over one shoulder. He was moving slow, head down, legs barely working against the wind. It hit me hard. This kid was out here all by himself. No hesitation, I hit the brakes hard. I threw it into park and jumped out, the cold slapping me in the face like a brick wall. "Hey!" I shouted, waving my arms, trudging through the snow toward him. But he didn't stop. If anything, he looked like he was fading fast, steps growing weaker by the second. When I got to him, I grabbed his shoulders and made him look at me. His face was bone white, lips turned blue, and his eyes, man, his eyes were wide and scared and full of something I couldn't name. "Where's your family?" I asked him, trying to sound calm, even though my heart was jackhammering in my chest. "What are you doing out here?" He didn't say a word, just swayed a bit, then collapsed right into my arms. I barely got him back to the car, wrestling the door open and stuffing him inside like I was loading a frozen log. He was colder than anything I've ever touched. I cranked the heat and wrapped my old flannel scarf around him. "Stay with me, all right, kid? You're gonna be okay." As I drove the rest of the way home, hands trembling on the steering wheel, questions were bouncing around my brain like loose change. Who was he? Where had he come from? What in God's name was a child doing out there in the worst snowstorm we'd had in years? I didn't know it yet, but everything in my life was about to shift. That silent kid in the backseat, he was the start of something big. When we finally pulled up to my little place on the edge of town, I was shaking more from nerves than the cold. Fumbling with the keys, I dragged him and his bag inside. He felt light in my arms, too light. I laid him down on my beat-up old couch, the kind of couch that's seen too many football games and not enough guests. His face looked ghost-like in the soft yellow glow of the lamp. "All right, bud?" I muttered, brushing snow out of his tangled hair. "Let's get you warmed up." I scrambled for blankets, piling them on him, then knelt down beside him. His chest was rising and falling real shallow, but he was breathing, thank God. I peeled off his soaked shoes and saw his socks were nearly frozen solid. I felt a pit form in my stomach. How long had he been out there? My eyes wandered to the backpack he'd been gripping like his life depended on it. It was too big for him and packed tight. Against my better judgment, I unzipped it. That's when my blood ran cold. Bundles of cash, stacks of crisp bills, jammed in there between a couple of t-shirts and a crumpled-up note. My hands shook as I unfolded the paper. "Take care of him. He's not safe with us anymore." What the hell did that mean? Who was he running from? Why would someone send a kid off into a blizzard with a bag full of money? My head was spinning, the questions coming too fast to catch. I leaned over him and shook his shoulder gently. "Hey, kid, you with me? Can you hear me? What's your name?" His eyes fluttered open just for a second, voice barely a whisper. "D. Logan," he said, before slipping back out like a dying candle. Logan. Now I had a name, but it didn't help none. If anything, it made things harder. Who the hell was Logan? And why'd somebody leave him to freeze out there alone? By morning, the storm had passed, but the storm in my head sure hadn't. Logan mumbled a bit in his sleep, but he still hadn't come to fully. I spent the whole morning pacing, glancing at the clock, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. That backpack sat on the kitchen table like it was screaming at me. I couldn't go to the cops. Not yet. What if that note wasn't just desperate words from a scared parent? What if Logan really wasn't safe, and calling the cops would have only made things worse? I was still spinning through those thoughts when I noticed movement from the couch. The kid opened his eyes slowly, blinking up at the ceiling light like it hurt. Where am I?" he rasped. "You're all right?" I told him, settling down beside him. I found you out in the storm. My name's Mike. I kept my voice low, trying not to spook him more than he already was. Can you tell me what happened? He pulled the blanket tighter around him, his little fingers gripping it like it was all he had left in the world. I don't know, he murmured. I was home. Then my mom told me I had to leave. She gave me the bag and said I had to run. Said some people were coming. What people? I asked gently. He shook his head, tears starting to gather in his eyes. Bad people, he whispered. She said they'd hurt me if they found me. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just a lost kid. This was bigger, messier, more dangerous than anything I'd ever been caught up in. Later that day, just when I was trying to wrap my head around what the hell to do next, a heavy knock rattled the front door. I froze. My skin went cold. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the way that knock hit, it wasn't friendly. Stay put, I whispered to Logan. He nodded and curled up tighter, trying to disappear into the couch cushions. I reached for the baseball bat I kept by the door, just in case, and cracked it open a sliver. 2 men stood outside. Black suits, stone-cold expressions. The kind of guys you don't forget. Morning, one of them said, voice like velvet but with something nasty underneath. We're looking for a boy, about this tall, dark hair. Seen anyone like that? My heart thudded in my chest. No, I lied, keeping the door barely open. Ain't seen anyone. The man tilted his head, eyes narrowing. You sure? We believe he might be around here. It's real important we find him. I can't help you, I said, squeezing the bat tighter behind the door. The 2 men shared a look, quiet, calculated. All right, the other one said. But if anything strange happens, you'd best let us know. For your own good. They walked off, slow and steady. I waited until they were gone, then slammed the door shut and pushed the couch in front of it. My hands were shaking. Those men weren't just asking questions, they were on the hunt. And now, by lying, I'd put a target on myself too. I turned back to Logan. He was huddled on the floor, arms around his knees, his eyes wide with fear. Logan, I said, trying to keep my voice level. Who are those guys? Why are they after you? He looked up at me, voice barely above a whisper. I don't know their names, but they work for someone. Someone bad. My mom was scared of him. She said he'd hurt us if they caught me. But why you? I asked, struggling to understand. Why not her? Tears spilled down his cheeks as he spoke, voice cracking. Because of my dad. She said they don't care about her. They want me. Because of him. I stared at the kid. What the hell could a boy's father have done to bring this kind of danger down on his son? And why the hell had his mother just disappeared? There were too many questions, and none of them had good answers. But I knew one thing for sure, those men weren't done. They'd be back. Probably soon. I dropped to one knee and looked Logan straight in the eye. Listen to me, all right? You're safe here for now. But we can't stay. They'll come back. I don't want us to be here when they do. Got it? He nodded slowly. His face was pale, but there was something solid behind his eyes now. Where will we go? He asked quietly. I don't know yet, I admitted. But I'll figure it out. I'll keep you safe. I promise. The rest of that day passed in a blur. I stuffed what little food I had into a duffel, tossed in extra clothes, and slid the stack of cash from Logan's backpack into the bottom. My car wasn't much, but it was our only shot. Stay close to me, I told him as we crept out the back door into the frozen morning. The neighborhood was dead quiet. Snow muffled everything like a heavy blanket. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. My heart pounded with every step. I kept expecting those suits to jump out from behind a snowbank, guns drawn. But for now, there was just silence. We made it to the car without a hitch, but when I twisted the key, the engine coughed like it was about to give up for good. Come on, I muttered. Gripping the wheel like that would somehow help. From the passenger seat, Logan's voice broke the heavy silence. What if they find us? They won't, I said. But I wasn't sure if I was lying to him or myself. After a few shaky tries, the engine finally roared to life, and I didn't waste a second getting us back on the road. I didn't have a map in my head, just this gut-deep need to put distance between us and those suits. As long as we were moving, I felt like we still had a chance. After a while, Logan started to open up a bit. His voice was small, but steady. My dad, he's rich. Like, really rich. That caught me off guard. I glanced at him, What kind of rich are we talking about here? He shrugged. I don't really know. Mom never talked about it much. Just said he was some kind of businessman. But she didn't want him around. Said it was safer that way. That word, safer, sat heavy in my chest. Did he know about you? I asked. Logan gave a slow nod. I think so. But Mom said he didn't want anything to do with us. Said we were better off without him. I didn't say anything after that. Truth was, I was mad. What kind of man leaves his kid behind, knowing dangers at the door? But I wasn't about to put that on Logan. He already had enough weight on his shoulders. Hours passed. Snow-covered fields stretched out endlessly on both sides, white and empty. I was just starting to relax a little when I noticed something in the rearview mirror. A black SUV. Not close enough to be obvious, but it had been there too long, taking every turn we took, matching our pace. Logan, I said, keeping my voice low, I need you to stay calm, all right? I think someone's following us. His eyes widened, and he twisted around to look. What do we do? He whispered. We lose them. I pressed down on the gas, the old engine whining in protest. The SUV didn't hesitate, it sped up too. My heart pounded. I gripped the wheel tighter and made a hard right onto a narrow back road, snow flying from the tires. The SUV followed, its headlights cutting through the dark like knives. Hang on, I yelled, jerking the wheel again and taking us onto an even smaller road, barely wide enough for the car. Tree branches scraped along the sides like claws. Logan clung to the seat, eyes wide with fear. Are they still behind us? He asked. I checked the mirror. Gone. But I didn't trust it. We kept going until the road gave way to deep woods, and finally I pulled over into a small clearing, hidden from view. The engine ticked as it cooled, and for a moment, all I could hear was the wind through the trees. We'll stay here for the night, I said, trying to sound like I had a plan. They won't find us out here. Logan didn't argue. He looked worn out, his body slumping sideways in the seat, eyes barely open. I reached over and gave his hand a squeeze. We're gonna get through this, I promised. I won't let anything happen to you. He nodded softly, and for the first time since I found him stumbling through that storm, I felt a little sliver of hope. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. The night out in the woods was bitter cold. I wrapped Logan in every blanket I could find and ran the heat off and on to save gas. He drifted into a restless sleep, curled up tight on the passenger side. I didn't sleep, couldn't. I sat there, eyes on the windshield, ears tuned to every snap of a twig or whisper of wind. Every little noise felt like a threat, but the woods stayed quiet. At some point, I looked over at Logan, his face soft, calm in sleep, like none of this mess even existed, like he was just a kid dreaming about normal things. And in that moment, something in me changed. Whatever hell he'd come from, whatever fire was chasing us, I wasn't letting it touch him again. Not while I was still breathing. The sun started to rise, faint and gray, peeking through the trees. Morning had come too soon. Morning broke slow and gray through the trees, painting everything in a pale light. Logan stirred beside me, his eyes searching mine the second he woke. Are we safe? He asked, barely above a whisper. For now, I told him. But truth was, I didn't know. I only knew we had to keep moving. We split a meager breakfast, some crackers and a bit of jerky I had packed in the rush, but my head was already racing ahead. We couldn't live like this forever, jumping from one cold back road to the next. If we were going to protect Logan for Real, I had to figure out who was after him, and why. Logan? I asked carefully as we packed up. Do you know anything else about your dad? Where he might be? He chewed on his lip for a moment before answering. I think he lives in the city. Mom mentioned it once, but she didn't want me to know much. The city, that wasn't a lot to go on. But it was something. If his father really was rich, like Logan said, maybe he had the kind of power that could keep the boy hidden. But even as I thought it, I hated the idea. A man who walked away from his own child didn't deserve a second chance to play hero. Still, we didn't have many other options. The drive to the city was tense. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, waiting for that black SUV to reappear. Logan sat quiet beside me, clinging to his backpack like it was a life raft. Why'd your mom leave me that note? I asked after a long stretch of silence. Why didn't she come with you? He didn't look at me, but I saw his eyes glisten. She said she'd find me when it was safe, he murmured. But I don't know if she can. I didn't push. The hurt on his face was clear enough. But inside I was furious. What kind of mother sends her child into the night alone? No matter how bad things were, I couldn't imagine leaving Logan behind. Not now. Not ever. By midday, the city rose up in front of us. Tall buildings like steel giants watching from a distance. I found a rundown motel on the edge of town and paid in cash, not wanting to leave a paper trail. As I settled Logan into the tiny, dusty room, guilt twisted in my gut. He deserved a soft bed, warm food. Not this. While he rested, I stepped out to get some air. The lot outside was mostly empty, but near the entrance stood a man in a heavy coat, smoking a cigarette. Something about him made every hair on my neck stand up. He looked my way. I turned back quick, slipped into the room, and locked the door behind me. "Everything okay?" Logan asked, sitting up.
"Yeah, Elite."
"We're fine." But I couldn't shake the feeling we were being watched. The next day, I started digging. Logan didn't know his dad's full name, but I figured money talks. I used some of the cash to hire a private investigator, an old-timer named Hank with tired eyes and a worn leather jacket. "You're telling me this kid's dad is a millionaire, and you don't even know his name?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Just find him," I snapped, sliding a thick envelope of bills across the table. "Don't care how." Hank gave me a skeptical look, but he took the job. I headed back to the motel with the weight of it all pressing down hard. Logan deserved answers. I was going to get them one way or another. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the walls had me on edge. Then I heard it. Footsteps, soft but deliberate, right outside our room. My heart leapt. I grabbed the bat and motioned for Logan to stay still. Slowly, I crept to the curtain and peered out. It was the man from the parking lot. Same heavy coat. Same cold stare. He was standing right outside our door, watching. I backed away, mind racing. "Logan?" I whispered, keeping my voice low but firm. "We need to go. Right now." I grabbed his hand and the bag already packed and waiting. The money, the food, everything we needed was ready. "Quiet as you can," I whispered. Outside, the man was pacing now, looking around like he was expecting someone else to show. My stomach dropped. Reinforcements? Maybe. We didn't have time to find out. "Out the window," I told Logan. "You first." He nodded and slipped through easily. I followed as quietly as I could, praying to whoever was listening that the guy wouldn't hear us. The cold slapped me the second I hit the pavement, but I didn't slow down. I grabbed Logan's hand and pulled him along as we darted behind the motel, slipping into the narrow alley. We stayed in the dark, ducking trash bins and frozen puddles until we hit a crowded intersection a few blocks away. Both of us were out of breath, faces flushed from the cold and the sprint. "Are they gone?" Logan asked between gasps. "I don't know," I said, glancing around. I didn't see the man from the motel, but that didn't mean he wasn't out there, somewhere in the crowd or behind some tinted window. "We can't stop now." By sunrise, we were hunkered down in a greasy little diner clear across town. Logan sat across from me, poking at a stack of pancakes while I kept watch through the smudged window. My mind was moving faster than the cars outside. We couldn't stay on the run forever. At some point, they'd catch up. I didn't even know who they were, not really. The only thing I could think to do was dig deeper, figure out who was chasing him and why. Then my phone buzzed. It was Hank. "I've got something," he said. "But you're not gonna like it." "What is it?" I asked, gripping the phone tight. "Your kid's dad. His name's Graham Monroe. Big shot businessman. One of the richest guys in the city. And from the sound of things, he's made a few powerful enemies. If someone's targeting the kid, it's probably connected to that. Graham Monroe." The name rang a bell, though I couldn't place from where. But it made sense. "Can you get me to him?" Hank paused. "Won't be easy. The guy's got security like Fort Knox, and he's not exactly known for being warm and fuzzy. Just figure it out," I said, my stomach twisting. I hung up, staring down at the phone. If Graham was the only one who could keep Logan safe, then fine. But if he walked away once, what made me think he wouldn't do it again? That afternoon, just as I was settling the check, I spotted something out the window. A black SUV, parked across the street. My pulse jumped. It looked a little too familiar. "Logan," I said quietly, "we gotta move. Now." "But I'm not done." "We'll get something on the way," I said, throwing cash on the table and pulling him to his feet. The waitress gave us a strange look, but I didn't stop to explain. We slipped out the back, keeping low and sticking to the alleys, weaving through the maze of brick walls and garbage cans. The SUV didn't follow, but I couldn't shake the feeling someone was watching us. Every footstep behind us sounded louder. Every shape in the corner of my eye looked suspicious. The city had gone from feeling like our last hope to something more like a trap. That night, Hank called again. "I got you a meeting," he said. "But I'm warning you now, you're not gonna like this guy. Just tell me where to go." An hour later, Logan and I stood outside a massive glass tower downtown. The building loomed above us, slick and cold-looking, reflecting the city lights like a mirror. I wiped my sweaty palms on my jeans and walked us to the front desk. The guard barely looked up before waving us toward a private elevator. Logan stayed close as we rode up, clutching my coat sleeve. When the doors opened, a tall man in a sharp suit stood waiting for us. His face was all hard lines and calculation. "Mr. Reed," he said, his voice flat.
I'm Graham Monroe.
"I hear you've brought me my son." He led us into his office, more like a palace than a workspace. Everything was sleek and expensive, all black leather and polished chrome. Floor-to-ceiling windows gave a view of the whole city. But none of it impressed me. In fact, it made me feel even more out of place. His eyes flicked over to Logan, who was half hiding behind me. "So, you're the boy," Graham said, no warmth in his voice. Logan didn't say a word. His hand tightened around mine. I stepped forward, heat rising in my chest. "He's your son," I said, sharper than I meant to. "And he's been through hell because of you." Graham didn't flinch, just raised an eyebrow like I was annoying him. "And what exactly do you expect me to do about that?" "You're his father," I snapped. "He needs protection. People are after him. Dangerous people," I said flatly. Graham leaned back in his chair, hands steepled like he was conducting a board meeting, not talking about the life of his own son. "And you think dragging him here's gonna fix that?" he said coolly. "If anything, you've just made me a bigger target." I stared at him in disbelief. "You seriously don't care, do you? That's your son standing right there." Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe, regret. But it disappeared so fast I wasn't sure it had ever been there. "I'll see what I can do," he said finally. "But you should understand something. Protecting him won't be free." That hit like a gut punch. I stood there trying to process the coldness in his voice, the way he talked about Logan like he was some kind of problem to be managed instead of a child who needed his father. Logan's eyes moved between us, confused and hurt. "What cost?" I asked, my voice sharp. "You're seriously treating this like it's some kind of negotiation?" Graham let out a bitter breath and turned toward the massive windows, his back to us. "You don't know what you've stepped into," he said. "This isn't about being a father or doing the right thing. This is about power, control. And to them, Logan's not a kid. He's leverage." That word sent a chill down my spine. "Leverage," I repeated. "He's not a bargaining chip. He's your child." Graham nodded slowly. "Years ago, I made a deal with men I shouldn't have trusted. That deal turned ugly. They've been waiting for something to use against me. And now they've got it." I stepped closer, my anger boiling over. "He's not a weakness. He's a scared little boy, and people are trying to kill him. So maybe it's time you stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about the kid you left behind." Graham turned back to face me. His expression was hard to read, somewhere between guilt and fear. "You think I don't care?" he said quietly. "I didn't even know he existed until today. But now that I do, I've got to be careful. If I make the wrong move, it won't just be him in danger. It'll be you too." Logan hadn't said a word through the whole thing. He just stood there, clutching his backpack like it was the only thing keeping him upright. I stepped in front of him, keeping my voice steady. "We don't have time for your excuses. Either you help us, or we figure it out on our own." Graham's jaw tensed. He studied me for a long second before finally saying, "You're brave. I'll give you that. But bravery doesn't equal safety." "Then tell me what does." I shot back. He didn't answer. Instead, he pressed a button on his desk. A man in a black suit walked in like he'd been waiting on the other side. "This is Silas," Graham said. "He runs my security team. He'll take you both somewhere safe while I handle things." "Handle what exactly?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. Graham looked at me, and for a moment, I saw something cold in his gaze. You don't want to know. Silas drove us to a massive estate on the edge of the city. High walls, cameras everywhere, and a gate that could stop a tank. It was safe, yeah, but it felt more like being locked up than being protected. "This'll keep you out of sight," Silas said as we stepped inside. "Only a few people even know this place exists." Logan looked around nervously, his hand tightening in mine. "Is my dad coming here too?" he asked. Silas hesitated. "He's got other things to take care of." That answer didn't sit right for either of us, but I let it go. For now, the only thing that mattered was keeping Logan alive. Silas left us alone, promising someone would check in. The next few days were slow and tense. The place was quiet, too quiet. Logan and I stayed inside, always half waiting for something bad to happen. I tried to keep his mind off it. We played card games, made up stories by the fire. But the fear never really left the room. It just sat with us, like a shadow we couldn't shake. One night, while we were sitting near the fireplace, Logan broke the silence. "Do you think my mom's okay?" he asked softly. I didn't answer right away. I didn't want to give him hope if there wasn't any. "I think she did what she thought she had to do to keep you safe," I said carefully. "And I think she'd want you to be brave." Logan nodded, his eyes wet. "I miss her." "I know," I said, pulling him close. "We'll get through this, Logan. I promise." That promise didn't last long. A few nights later, I woke up to alarms blaring through the house. Red lights flashed against the walls. Logan sat up, terrified, clutching the blanket to his chest. The safe house wasn't safe anymore. "What's going on?" Logan cried out, his voice trembling. "I don't know," I said, grabbing his hand. "But we need to move now." Before we could take another breath, Silas kicked the door open, gun in hand, his face grim. "They found us," he said. "We're leaving. Right now." My blood turned to ice. "How'd they even get this close?" "Doesn't matter," he snapped. "We're out of time." Gunshots rang out somewhere deep in the house. Silas pulled us into a hidden hallway behind the bedroom wall. We ran fast and silent, the muffled chaos growing louder behind us. My heart felt like it was going to split in two. We burst into a hidden garage, bright lights flicking on to reveal a line of sleek black cars. Silas shoved us into the back of one and jumped behind the wheel. "Hang on," he warned. And then we were flying out into the night, the engine growling as we tore away from the estate. As the city lights faded behind us, it hit me like a punch. We couldn't run from this forever. No matter how far we went or how careful we were, they'd always be coming. I looked over at Logan, pale and shaking in the seat beside me, and guilt twisted in my gut. I told him I'd keep him safe. And yet, here we were again, running for our lives. "Where are we going?" I asked, voice barely steady. "To Mr. Monroe," Silas said, his eyes locked on the road. "He's ready to end this." We pulled into an abandoned industrial site on the far edge of the city. Barbed wire fences, floodlights, guard towers. It looked more like a battlefield than a meeting spot. Graham was already there, standing in the center of it all, surrounded by armed men. His face was carved from stone, cold, focused, but something behind his eyes burned with intensity. "This ends tonight," he said as we approached. "They wanted a war? They'll get one." "What are you doing?" I asked, horrified. "You're putting Logan in the crosshairs." "No," he replied, his voice steely. "I'm making sure no one ever comes near him again." And then all hell broke loose. Gunfire cracked through the air, bullets flying as Graham's team clashed with the enemy. Smoke, shouting, metal against metal, it was chaos. I kept Logan close, shielding him with my body, praying it would be enough. The fear was real, thick, you could feel it in your throat. Graham appeared beside us for a split second, crouching behind a stack of crates. His face was smeared with blood and soot. "When this is over," he said, "I'll make sure Logan gets the life he deserves." "You should have done that a long time ago," I snapped. He didn't argue, just nodded once, then disappeared into the fight. When it was finally over, the place went dead quiet. The air was heavy with smoke and loss. Graham stood in the center of the wreckage, bleeding but still on his feet. His men had taken a hit. Some weren't getting back up. But the threat had been silenced for good. Logan broke away from me, tears pouring down his cheeks as he ran to his father. "Dad!" For the first time, Graham's expression cracked. He dropped to his knees and wrapped his arms around his son like he couldn't believe he was real. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." He meant it. I could see it in the way he held Logan like he'd never let go again. Afterward, Graham kept his word. He moved us far away to a quiet little town nobody would ever think to look. A place with green hills, school buses, and neighbors who smiled. He visited often, sometimes awkward, sometimes unsure, but he kept coming. Slowly, he started becoming a real father. It wasn't a perfect ending. There were scars, things we didn't talk about, but it was a beginning. One built on trust, sacrifice, and something stronger than blood. It was about a boy, a mother who'd risked everything, and a stranger who refused to let him go. And as I watched Logan laugh in the backyard one sunny afternoon, finally free, finally safe, I knew it had all been worth it.